Hi, I'm Sara and welcome to Hen Corner. We are celebrating summer at home with Country Living magazine, and as one of the regular columnists, I write the Good Life in the City pages. It's fantastic to be part of the celebrations. Now, in the height of summer, what could be nicer than an afternoon tea with homemade jam and freshly made scones? That's what we're doing today. So I'm going to start by picking some of our apples, and then I'm going to pop down to the allotment and see if we can find some blackberries for jam. A few months ago, I was cursing the blackberries because my plot was covered with them 8 foot high, and as my first year on the allotment, my primary job was to get them under control, cutting them down and digging out the roots. Now that I've got vegetable beds where the brambles once were on the plot, I can now enjoy scavenging and foraging around the edge of the plot to see what fruit we can gather as a prize for preserving. What's wonderful about blackberries is alongside this beautiful blackberries that make perfect jam or can be sandwiched in between the sponge of a cake, they seem to be flowering and flowering and flowering, which means a constant source of food for our bees, both honeybees and solitary bees. And as they find their nectar and their pollen, they can take it back to their colonies and make sure that the next generation of bees have all they need to see them through for the future. We've got all that we need to make some jam. We've got our blackberries. I've brought them back from the allotment and just rinsed them under the tap and drained them. We've got the apples that I've just picked from the garden, and we've got the sugar. And the reason we're using the apples with the blackberry is, one, it's a great combination, but two, the apples contain pectin, which is really important if you want your jams to have a jelly set to them. So we're going to start off by preparing the apples to get the most of that pectin stock. And as well as the apples, I have got this little bit of cheesecloth. And the cheesecloth is going to be used to gather the peel from the apples and the core. So we're going to peel the apples. Now that we've peeled the apples, we're going to grate them into the blackberries. Now we've got the apples grated into the blackberry, what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up the pips and the core and the peel into this muslin. I'm not sure if I'm going to fit it all in. Here we go. And we're going to boil this in some water in the pan. And that's how we're going to extract the pectin from this. We're going to take it out before we make the jam. The apple core and peel have now been simmering in that water for about 5 minutes. So I'm just going to scoop them out. Ooh. And we've got this lovely pectin stock in there. It wasn't loads of water, about 500 ml of water, but it's going to evaporate as it cooks. Now into the pan we're going to put our fruit. Now we have 950 grams of blackberries, and the apple, now that it's just been grated, is probably another 150 grams. So we're just over 1,000 grams, just over a kilo of fruit. And we're going to pop that in. Woo, the juice is coming. Juice is flowing. And we're going to add a kilo of sugar. Our fruit and sugar are now on the stove. We're going to bring them to the boil, and as they boil, the volume is going to increase with all those bubbles, and it's going to come to a high foaming boil. We need to be careful it doesn't boil over. And then once it's at a high foaming boil, we're looking at about 10 minutes at that high foaming boil until the water's evaporated and the jelly is at the perfect set. Whilst the jam is boiling, we're going to get busy sterilising these jars, and we're going to do that by having them submerged in a very large pan of simmering water for about 5 or 10 minutes. The jam bubbled and boiled until the bubbles became thicker and bigger, and then they started to subside. We checked that it reached 106 degrees, and now we're going to do the wrinkle test to see if it's definitely at setting point. We take a saucer that we've had in the freezer, and then we're just going to put a little bit of jam on the side. Now the reason that the sauce has been in the freezer is to help the jam to cool down quite quickly, because this is pretty hot. So we can roll it slightly on the saucer to help the jam cool down. Already I can see there's some wrinkles. What we need to do for the wrinkle test is use our little finger and just push the jam away. And if you can see wrinkles in front of your finger, which I can clearly here, then you know that it's reached the perfect setting point. So the apples for the pectin have definitely done their job, and this jam is ready for jarring. Lovely. Now I've got my jars. They have been simmering in hot water over the stove. I'm just going to drain them out. Let's find the lid for that one. Brilliant. And I'm going to use this gadget here. This is called a jam funnel, and that fits into the jar, and it then means that we can spoon the jam straight from the pot into the funnel, and it doesn't splash everywhere. Now it's really important if you're using glass jars and hot jam, the jars and the jam are at the same sort of temperature. We don't want to be putting hot liquid into cold glass or cold liquid into hot glass, because that's how glass cracks. But the jars are nice and hot straight off the hob. The jam is nice and hot, and we can fill up the jars, get them sealed nice and tight, and then once they're cooled they can be stored, and they'll be good to go. You can eat them straight away if you want, or they will save perfectly in the pantry for 2 or 3 years. There we go. I think that one is perfectly filled. Oh, that's quite hot. Put the lid on top. Let's pop that there. Oh, that is the first jar of apple and blackberry jam this year. I'm looking forward to having that on a scone for tea. The jam is all jarred up, and while it's cooling, let's make a quick batch of scones or scones that we can enjoy with that freshly made jam. Scones are really easy. It's just not worth buying them from the shop. It's so straightforward, and most of the ingredients you'll probably have in your cupboard at home already. So here goes. We've got self-raising flour, 225 grams. And into that we're going to rub some cold butter. This is 40 grams. Now we're going to work quite quickly because we want a breadcrumb consistency, and it's quite warm today. So squeeze the bits of butter together and rub in the flour. This is a bit like making an apple crumble or pastry. When your flour and butter mixture is soft and light and an even consistency, we're going to put in a pinch of salt, half a teaspoon of baking powder, 25 grams of sugar, that's caster sugar. Mix it with our hand, and then we're going to stir in the milk. We've got 110 grams of milk. Now that's quite wet, so I'm going to use a scraper to start with. And we're just combining for a soft dough. You know when it's fully combined when your bowl is clean and you haven't got wet dough or dry flour sticking to the sides. And we want to be able to pull it together and give it a squeeze with our hand. There we go. Here we go. Now we want to work quite quickly, and we don't want to handle the dough too much, so lightly roll it. I like to keep it quite thick because then it can rise up nicely. So I'd say we've got that, a good centimetre, maybe 1.5 centimetres thick. Using a cutter, and we're going to put it down and up. We're not going to twist it. So down and up. Oh, there we go. Pop it straight onto our baking tray. Down and up. Down and up. These are going to go on my baking tray, which I've already lined with baking parchment. Draw it together for the last few. This should make 6. There we go. That popping noise is completely natural. It's the jam cooling and the button on the lid dropping down as everything contracts, and it's a good sign that you've sealed it well. Do you know what, that last one, I think we'll just put that on whole. Brilliant. So we've now got our scones. Took moments to make. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to take what's left of the milk in the mug here, brush the tops with a bit of milk. And then sprinkle on some sugar for crispy topping. These are going to go in the oven, 200 degrees. We're going to check them after 12 minutes. If they're not quite brown, we'll leave them in for another couple of minutes. Bring them out and enjoy them with that jam. The scones are perfectly baked. They took just 12 minutes. And now it's time to try our jam. So the question is, do we go Cornwall or Devon? Do we put our jam on first or our cream on first? I like to go Cornwall, so I'm going to put a dollop of jam and then a spoon of cream on the top of each one. Whoa. Oh, I'm going to need to drop that with my knife. Whoa. Beautiful. And I'm all set here with my cup of tea. It has been wonderful being part of Celebrate Summer at Home with Country Living magazine. If you want to know more about Hen Corner, come and check out our website, hencorner.com. Throughout this year, we've been running our courses as online virtual courses, so you can join us wherever you are and participate in the group sessions via Zoom. We are going to have some face-to-face courses in the run-up to Christmas, so we'd love you to join us if you can get to us here in West London. And for those of you who are checking out all the other things that Country Living are offering this weekend, do go to CL Artisans on Instagram, where you can see wonderful products made by our wonderful, faithful artisan producers. So it's been great being part of this today. Have a go at the jam, try some scones and enjoy your summer wherever you are.